Hey everyone, this is Jirbie, your certified aromatherapist, graduate of New York Institute of Aromatic Studies, and for today you're up for another episode of my Live Well with Aromatherapist, Jirbie Go. So for this season, we will be talking more about business tips on how to convert your passion into paycheck, into something that's profitable. And for today's topic, we will be talking about the art of the start. In here, I'm going to be giving you sound advice and useful tips in considering how to start up, like finally start with your startup or perhaps with your planned venture or planned business or side hustle if you want to make it more mainstream. All right, so if you're up to that conversation, listen in, listen close, get your paper and take notes. All right, so I've decided to focus this season in giving business tips because I have been receiving quite a handful of requests to talk about this. Not just from Jen, but from girls, even during the summit, who's been asking me on the career paths of being an aromatherapist here in the Philippines. And I thought it would be interesting to cover topics about that realm. And not just being an aromatherapist, I guess as a freelancer in general, as someone who's not part of the corporate workforce. Okay, so first is basically just start today. Start now. Don't procrastinate. Start with your creative outlet for your thoroughly uncreative job. I mean, if you have this passion, if you have this creative outlet that you do on the weekends, why don't you do more of it during the weekdays now that everybody's just working from home? You have more disposable time during the weekdays. Just foster or harness that skill or take up a new skill, take up a new hobby. Like me, during the quarantine, I started getting interested in coffee home brewing. I started discovering all these unique and tasteful coffee aside from the ones that we are normally exposed to. So now I can proudly say that I've already tasted Colombian coffee, Ethiopian coffee, even competition coffee. I've tasted a lot of coffee because of that sheer interest. And you'd want to foster that interest to eventually build you up, perhaps to more knowledge, perhaps to enrich your experience. It's, just to add colors into your life and not just box yourself with the things or the skill sets that you already know. Do not wait. The time will never be right. I mean, you'd always find that excuse to procrastinate, to push it backwards. And that's how I felt when I started my YouTube channel. Start where you stand and work with whatever tools that you have. And then you can just improve as you go along. So let me tell you my personal story. When I started my YouTube channel, believe it or not, it took me 6 full years to start my YouTube channel. The one that I'm managing today. It took me 6 years, imagine that, to get it up and running. I started blogging in September of 2008. And by 2010, when YouTube was starting, it was only Michelle Fan then. I remember my significant other telling me that I should start a YouTube channel. And I've always found the lame excuse not to. Always say I don't have a proper camera, or I'm too shy, or people might not like me, or I might not have enough followers. There was so much overthinking, overanalyzing done not to start with it. And it took me 6 years to actually set up my YouTube channel. So it took me 6 full years to decide that I wanted to give in. I wanted to be a YouTuber. And it's not that easy, honestly. Like with any endeavor, it's not going to be easy. So it wasn't that easy for me to transition as a blogger to a YouTuber. There were adjustments, like I had to learn how to edit videos. I had to learn how to produce videos. And during that time, and even until now, I'm still just using my phone. I haven't really, I guess, rationalized on investing with video equipments like cameras and stuff. But I do have my ring light now. But it took me like 3 years to finally invest in my own set of lighting setups. But I still prefer using like the daylight. So a lot of those blockages, or a lot of those things that are keeping us from attaining those goals are honestly just from us, are just from our brains, are just from our minds. And when we try to think about it, like looking back in hindsight, I'd say I should have started with YouTube early on. I should have started in 2010 where there weren't much people who are in the platform. I could have gotten so much more of the pie versus like starting 6 years later or versus starting later on. It's just better to be one of the pioneers. It's just better to be one of the firsts. Okay? And number 2, you have to zero down on your whys. When you wanted to take your passion into something more serious, bring it to the mainstream instead of being just a side hustle, you have to make sure of your why. Why are you creating and what are you going to do with it moving forward? Think about why would you want to leave your company and start up this new venture? Why would you want to have your own business? Why would you want to put your toes in the entrepreneurial realm? It's something that you have to think about because there are pros and cons, especially if you've been in the corporate world for like decades, like 10 years or 8 years. That's a big adjustment. There are a lot of benefits that you are used to in the corporate world that won't be with you once you become a freelance, and you have to take note of all of those pros and cons. Can you sustain it? Do you have the budget to sustain at least 6 months of your expenses just in case, something didn't go the way you planned them to? So you'd have to have all those preparations before you actually, dive into the deep end. I guess I was just lucky that I had that freedom to decide on a whim. I left the corporate world, I guess, out of necessity. It wasn't really planned. I just got pissed with my boss at that time, and I decided I wanted to leave the corporate world. And it's not that I am a quitter, but I just know how to pick my fights. I know how to pick my battles. And I know that with that kind of situation, no matter how hard I work, no matter like X number of hours I work more than all the other people in that floor, I will never have the same recognition of what I'm putting myself into. So I just realized that, I can't work my ass off for someone who is gonna be shutting me down and who's gonna be a hindrance to my career path, to my career growth. And so I knew I had to leave. And it's just unexpected that I left the corporate world at such an early age, in my opinion. I wasn't really expecting that, to be honest. I grew up and planned my entire college life looking forward to like being in the corporate ladder, climbing it up, and eventually ending like being a pensioner. I mean, I had good plans of being in the corporate world, and it was such a sweet, I guess, unexpected outcome that I was able to sustain myself as an entrepreneur, as a freelance, as someone who works for herself, even at an early age. So I guess part of it, I really believe that luck played on my side, but part of it, I also believe that I guess a lot of the core competencies and a lot of the, I'd say, characters or drive, I already have it. And so I wanted to impart all of those strategies that I had when I was transitioning as someone who was in the corporate world transitioning to become a freelancer, because I know it can't be like the same. There's no cookie cutter formula or method for success in this endeavor, but with the right mindset, with the right questions, with the right preparation, I'm sure you girls will be equipped to sustain or be successful in some way. Okay? So going back, you have to zero down on your why. Like, make sure your why has to be something really, really personal, has to be something really, really compelling, really, really strong enough to anchor you and keep you grounded even during the darker days. Because it's not going to be easy, I'm telling you. There are days that you'd question yourself, you'd question your ability, you'd question if you are smart enough, strong enough, creative enough, or good enough. You'd question yourself because there's no security blanket in being a freelancer. Unlike when you're in the corporate world, you just have to show up at 9 a.m., go home at 5 p.m., deliver your deliverables, and you'd get your paycheck, you'd get your benefits, you'd get whatever you need to get from the company. Being an entrepreneur, being a freelancer, means that you'd have to think about more than beyond your 9 to 5. Your mind is actually operating beyond your 9 to 5. It's like every of your waking hour. And if you're not ready for that, if you think that you're not up for that, I don't think like being a freelancer would work for you. Like me, I'm very used to being a workaholic. In my last stint in the corporate world, I was basically awake all the time, and I only had 3 hours of sleep in a day. I'd go home by 6. As I've said in my first episode, I'd go home by 6, make sure to shower up, make sure to have my dinner, because by 8, I'd be having my conference call with the regional head office in New York. I'd be reporting all the deliverables, the numbers to them every night. I think it was MWF, I've already forgotten. And the conference would end at about 12 or 1 a.m. And I'd get my sleep by 3 a.m. And I'd have to wake up again by 6 a.m. because I'd have to be at work by 8 a.m. So it was kind of a hamster wheel for me for the course of 6 months. And that was okay. I was willing to do that. I was totally fine to do that because I loved my work. I loved my post. And being an entrepreneur, it's not really much different because you'd have to think about your business. It's like your baby. It's like your life and being because it's what's going to be, driving your bank account. It's what's going to be driving your financial stability and independence. So you'd have to put more effort into it than when you were in the corporate world. And, your why has to be something that you need to sit down on. Like, make sure that it's good enough. It's very personal enough to sustain you even during when things are tough, when the going is tough, because it's not going to be easy. Like when I was starting my Capricorn Dreams as a company, as a brand, the biggest hurdle for me was to process all the papers, to process all the permits, to process all the legalities, honestly. And it can be easy, you can hire people, but it's expensive. And I wasn't willing to do that. I was willing to honestly just build my company from ground up in the most personal way possible. So I was the one who personally went to the city hall, to the municipal hall. I was the one who personally just processed everything because I felt that it was also part of my learning. And I don't know, I think it paid off because I saved a lot of money. I mean, I know you can do all that by just paying 10 to 20 grand, and it's not something that I was willing to just pay. I felt that it was something that I should undergo by myself to be able to appreciate what it's like to be an entrepreneur. But it can be different for you, right? I mean, if you want to go for convenience and all that stuff, especially now that it's the pandemic, it's not really that healthy to go out there and line up, because I did a lot of falling in line. I did a lot of walking around in the QC City Hall where my business was registered. At the end of the day, your why has to be something that you can come back to when you're having a really, really hard moment. It has to be truly aligned with you, and it has to be something that will serve as a driving force when you feel that everything's just not working out. Okay? And once you've settled your why, you also have to answer your how. Can you make it work while maintaining your 9-to-5 job? Do you really have to quit your corporate work? Can you make it work while you're having your 9-to-5? I mean, these are the things that you'd have to consider, especially if you're still having second thoughts. And, once you quit your corporate job, it's not like you can just go back to it 1 or 2 months after, right? I mean, it's not necessarily the case. Perhaps you can in, I guess, exceptional cases, but it will not be the case for everyone. So you have to make sure that you're really fully, wholeheartedly into it, into that decision. You have to be really, really sure that you're willing to give up all the security, all that safety blanket that goes in having your regular corporate work, especially now that you're trading it off to be a freelancer, to be your own boss. Are you ready for all the changes in transitioning to a freelancer life? What are the roadblocks that might be keeping you from having that dive? To me, I didn't really have that much of a roadblock. When I decide, I put my everything into it. I normally just have a yes or no. To me, it's just black and white. There's not much gray area whenever I'm deciding, and I guess that's one of my strengths, that it's quick for me to decide, even on big life decisions. It's quick for me to say na, all right, I can take that, or yeah, sure, I can go with that, and just figure it out from there. I'm that type of person, but I understand that not everyone is that way. I know, like, for some of you, it may take months or years of toying with the idea of, thinking about it, and it's totally okay. And my advice is, don't jump into it unless you're fully and wholeheartedly decided that you can and you will make it work. It takes a certain level of commitment. It takes a certain level of not just passion, but it really is commitment. So we have to be really mindful, and we have to be really intentional in what we are dealing with. And you have to really think about all of these roadblocks. What if things don't pan out the way I imagine them to be? How will I feed my family? In my case, how will I feed my cats? So I had to figure that out, and I had to make sure that it worked. And at that time, when I resigned from my corporate post and decided I wanted to be a YouTuber, I've saved enough money to send myself to school, to send myself to actually take the social media marketing course. And at that time, it wasn't really that cheap as well. But I had enough money to make sure that at least if I'm going to be taking on this next hat, at least I have that certain degree of professionalism. At least I've taken a formal study about the analytics, like how it works, how to actually really, push the needle and make profit from it. I studied the analytics, how I would earn if I delve into YouTube. I did all that, and not just me having that want to be a YouTuber and just be famous. I've never really thought of myself to become famous. I guess I just wanted to explore that other stream of income. And luckily, at this point in my life, at least I'm earning some money out of it, even if I'm not really producing as much videos. It has been an okay passive income source. Not that big. It's not big for me to buy a new house or buy a new car, just like all the other mini club holder here in the Philippines. But, well, it's enough for me to buy things and, cover some errands, cover some bills, I guess. So I guess that's okay. And being a freelancer, you have to think about all the things that you can monetize, all the streams of income that you can take advantage of. Never ever put all your eggs in one basket. For example, if you are thinking about being a YouTuber, that's one stream of income. If you are thinking about having your craft hobby as another stream of income, just figure out multiple streams of income to make sure that, at least some of your fixed costs in a month in your lifestyle will be covered by these separate streams of income. Okay? And you'd also have to think about the what ifs. In here, you'd have to think about all the emotional roadblocks, all the psychological roadblocks, all the things that might go wrong. As an ad major in LaSalle, we'd always have this golden rule. And this is shared to us by one of the wisest men that I know, Sir Aries. And this quote would go, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Always remember that. Always remember that in all the things that you do, there's a possibility that it will screw up. And you'd have to be prepared for that. You'd have to have your contingency plan. You'd have to think that, okay, whatever that might hit a roadblock, just figure out it will, and what are the things that you will do if it happens. Just have contingency plans. Just have backup plans from B to Z. It's that extreme. And you know what? Sometimes when you think about all these what ifs, all these emotional, psychological, mental roadblocks, you'd realize that you are your own worst critic. Like in my story of starting up YouTube, it took me 6 years to finally decide that I wanted to be in YouTube. Versus in 2010, when my significant other was really encouraging me to be on YouTube because he thinks that I really can make it on YouTube. And I really wish that I decided then, because during that time there weren't much people in the playing field, and I could have like captured more of that eyeballs. I could have captured more of that market share versus starting 6 years down the line, 6 years later on. And it's just always good to be in the playing field early, be an early adopter versus coming in a little late. And you know, there's just so many people in the playing field, and it's just harder in that arena. But it's okay. I mean, you'd still apply all the principles of just putting in all your passion, just showcase your uniqueness, and make sure to be authentic. Just show the world who you really are versus copying someone else, versus, you know, being a clone of someone else. I know that it can be convenient, it can be easier just to copy someone else because that person has already done it and figured it out and perhaps has gone through all the hurdles and challenges, and you'd want that success formula to be applied to you, and so you just want to copy. But I realized that when you do that strategy, it's not really for the long run, it's not really for the long term. And I would want to dedicate a separate episode for that. Like, how can you cancel the cloning culture? I've had numerous experience of other people copying me, copying my work, copying my formula, even copying how I introduce myself. I have people who does that. And you'd have to understand that it's inevitable. Like, when people see that you are doing good in what you're doing, they tend to want to emulate you. And so in that episode, I'd probably be sharing with you how to be unclonable, like how to kill that cloning culture for your business in order for you to stand out, in order for you to have more longevity. Okay, and number 4, it's important that you define clearly what is success for you. Is it money? Is it financial reward? Is it X number of followers? Is it the title? Do you want to be certified in all of the interests that you're in? Is that something that makes you feel fulfilled? So you have to figure that out and work towards that goal, because at the end of the day, you can be breaking even, but you're happy, and that's okay, right? It still makes you feel fulfilled. It still gives you that sense of success. It depends on each person. Like for me, I'm happy in making not as much money in my YouTube thing because I have various streams of income, and I know I can produce money whenever I need it. Okay? What's more important for me, what makes me feel fulfilled, I realized, is deeper connections with the people that I'm interacting with. That really makes me fired up. Like, for example, whenever, it doesn't matter for me if I filled up a room whenever I'm having a workshop, or if I'm only teaching to a handful, for example, like a group of 4, I would feel that much fulfillment, and I would feel that same amount of success if I was able to connect with those 4 people than to have a sold out room, but all those 30 people are not even interacting with me. So it really makes me feel fired up, and it really fills my tank if I'm able to connect with the students, with the person really, really deeply, and that really makes me feel happy at the end of the day. So I know success is defined differently per person. I've met people that their tantamount level of success is earning 6 figures a month. I've met people who are very much into collecting all of these certificates and certifications, whether electronic or physical. I've met all of these people. And for me, I feel that my gauge of success is intangible. It's how it makes me feel. It's never really about the money. It's never really about the title. And that is also the reason why I've never really considered registering as part of NAHA, I believe, because to me, it's just a title. I mean, I can have more mastery even without having that title. I can know more about the topics that would resonate to me, even if I'm not pursuing more levels of the certification, because I'm well read, I think, and I have the experience, and I have the community and the network to provide me that very enriching experience that I can always share with everyone and get updated with what's new in aromatherapy. And that's what's more important to me. What's more important to me is that I gain my mastery in my own way, in my own pace, not necessarily taking all these expensive certifications and posting it on my social media for everyone to see. But what's important for me is that my cerebral power is filled to the brim according to where I'm at in that field. For example, I have more mastery in formulations and, I guess, herbalism versus animal aromatherapy, because I know that I'm still just starting in that arena. I may consider myself as knowledgeable in energetics in the same level as I am with animal aromatherapy, because I have invested like my past 3 weeks to a month or a few months in that arena. And so, I have a different level of mastery and knowledge in every facet of, for example, a craft or a hobby or a different facet of aromatherapy. And I don't really need a specific certificate to show you that. I mean, I'm sure you can have like a touch and a feel of my depth of knowledge, my depth of mastery in every topic, in each of these topics, by the way that I can address concerns, the way that I can address questions, and the way I can swiftly give you an answer according to the things I've read and according to the things that I have been exposed to, even without finishing any certificate or even without being registered in any association. Because sometimes those are just titles. Sometimes, there are things that are not really there are things in life that won't make certificates that relevant. But there are things like being a doctor. It would need you, of course, to finish the board exam. Or being a lawyer, of course, you would need to finish that bar exam, right? There are things that you definitely need credentials and certificates. And there are things in life that your depth of experience, your level of experience would play a better role versus than having just a certificate. I mean, don't get me wrong, okay? I also have a few certificates under my belt, and these are the ones that I've strategically taken that I felt that I really needed it in the course of my career. But to answer your question, whether or not you really needed a certificate for each and every aspect, or for each and every hobby that you might want to take on, the answer is no. Because, and this has been discussed in some of the women empowerment forum that I've attended, because lately we just notice everyone to be so fixated in getting certificates and just posting it on their social media. And it's just, you know what? We realize that your experience weighs so much more than just having an e-certificate and being posted on social media. You can achieve more mastery, you can achieve more value, even if you don't really have that certificate, versus someone who has a certificate but with no experience at all. You know, your experience provides so much more value. But of course, if you have the money, if you have the time to get the certificate, to build yourself, to build your credibility, to build your core competency, then why not? By all means, go get it. But don't let it be a hindrance. Don't let it be a barrier for you to say that you are not worthy of the things that you'd want to share. Okay? So, success is always personal. It's very personal, and it's never about what others expect of you or what others think of you. And in here, you have to aim for consistency and building your core competency. So what is your core competency? Building your strengths, building your knowledge, building your mastery, building your experience, right? I mean, if you are a fresh grad, before, people just look at the IQ, your honors, your grades, your GPAs. But now, the hiring managers would also look at the things that you've done outside the four corners of your classroom. For example, were you involved in any extracurriculars? Were you involved in any, philanthropic efforts outside of your school, outside of your organization? These are the things that would play well in your success. It's not always about the numbers, the grades, the certificates. It's also your experience. It has to be a well-rounded thing. It has to be the total package. Alright, so I guess that's all for today. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. It's a little bit short than our normal 1 hour-ish episode. But again, I would want this season to be more of a freelance thing. That I'm just going to be telling you the things that's in my mind with regard to that topic. And I would love to hear what you girls think. So if you have any podcast suggestions for me in the next coming episodes, don't forget to drop them through a comment on my photo about today's episode, and I'd love to hear what you think. So always remember, girls, that the best step you can ever take for your business is the first step. And that, my friend, is the art of the start. Thank you. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode here on my podcast. To receive updates and new episode alerts, don't forget to follow me here on Spotify. Or to see what I'm up to, don't forget to follow me on my Instagram at HappyOilerPH. And I'll see you on my next Live Well with Aromatherapist, Jirbie.